Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted from Packers.com. I am Mike Spofford, joined by my partner in everything Packers, Wes Hodkowitz. We're coming to you here from our studios at Lambeau Field to preview an awfully big game on Sunday. It will be the Packers at the Denver Broncos, 3:25 p.m. Central Time, kickoff from Denver. And Wes, you look at this Broncos team in 2025, they sort of feel like they're in that ahead of schedule category with Bo Nix as their young quarterback. They've built a defense that is among the best in the league. And this Denver team now is 11-2. They've won 10 straight after a 1-2 start. And it's a team that, much like the Chicago Bears, whom the Packers faced last week, it's a team that has built its record on winning close games and being clutch in the fourth quarter on both sides of the ball. And that's a pretty good formula for chalking up victories in this league.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing Bo Nix is a winner, man. I know sometimes the statistics, you can see what they are. People aren't going to be overly impressed by maybe the passer rating and those type of things, but this kid wins. And one of the lines I've been using in Inbox all week is he plays to his win condition, and that means having a really good defense and then situationally, when the game is on the line, finding ways to win that football game. I've been super impressed by Sean Payton and the job he's done. I know he took a lot of criticism that first year, how things went with Russell Wilson, but my goodness, they finally found their quarterback. It took almost a decade for them to find that successor to Peyton Manning that led them to that Super Bowl 50 victory. And the train is back on the tracks now, and my goodness, when you're talking about defensive football, there may be nobody doing it better pound for pound than what the Broncos have done this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this defense, pick your category, they're going to be ranked up there pretty high. The number, of course, that jumps out at everybody is the 55 sacks, which leads the NFL. It's actually 11 more sacks than any other team has. The second-place team in the league has 44. But this defense also, it isn't just about the sacks and the pressure they put on the quarterback. It's sort of their foundation in a sense. But this defense also leads the league against the run in terms of yards per carry. 3.7 yards per carry is all they allow on the ground. So you combine that type of stout run defense with the pass rush. They have 7 different defensive players who have 3 or more sacks on the season. The 2 edge rushers, Benito, and the other guy escapes me at the moment.
Jonathan Cooper?
Cooper, yes. Benito and Cooper, those are the 2 guys leading the way as far as the sacks are concerned, but they have the interior rushers with Zach Allen leading the way there. They have guys from the other levels of the defense contributing sacks, 7 guys with at least 3 sacks on the season. And then, oh, by the way, on the outside, you've got the reigning defensive player of the year in the NFL and Pat Surtain as a lockdown, shutdown cornerback. This is a defense that has a lot going for it on all 3 levels, and it's why they are ranked where they are and why this team, quite frankly, is where it is right now.
Well, you did a tremendous job of, kind of laying the landscape of this defense, but also, I mean, Vance Joseph being the orchestrator of all this. When you talk about a guy that was the head coach of the Denver Broncos, he leaves for 4 years in Arizona. He comes back as the defensive coordinator for Sean Payton. And the stamp he's put on this thing, when you talk about not necessarily rewriting a legacy, but in terms of kind of like changing the perspective on what it means to play in Denver. This guy knew what the stakes were. He understood what the assignment was for Peyton coming in and has given him a tremendous complementary defense. You look at Zach Allen. We were talking yesterday with Larry McCarron when we were doing 3 things. This is a guy that was a 3rd-round pick, had spent time with Joseph in Arizona, right? He goes to Denver. He follows him to Denver, and my goodness, the type of star that he's become. Benito is probably one of the best stories that has come out of the National Football League in maybe the 21st century, with very humble beginnings and turning himself into one of the league's elite pass rushers.
Yeah.
And then Surtain doesn't have the interceptions this year, doesn't have those numbers, but he's a guy that is virtually impossible to throw throw against. And with the man coverage that Joseph plays, that Denver plays, they aren't afraid to have him match up with another receiver and just try to shut down that part of the field, that particular player, for an entire game. It is a very feisty group. The only thing that kind of does surprise me sort of ties back into Surtain, in that they don't have a lot of takeaways. For as much pressure as they've generated this season, the interception numbers haven't been there. I think they're maybe 24th, something like that in the National Football League. But all that being said, that's about all you can take issue with. Across the board, they're as stout as they come.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the one thing, and it is surprising. It is not a defense that takes the ball away a lot. I believe they only have 10 takeaways on the year, one fewer than the Packers, with 11. And I think what we're starting to see, switching it back to the offensive side, what we're starting to see with Bo Nix is what you said, the phrase you said in terms of playing to his win condition. Bo Nix is going to take the short stuff and throw the receiver screens and do all of that, possession, move the ball stuff that Sean Payton likes to do.
Yep.
But Bo Nix is also going to take his chances. He's going to take his shots down the field. And his confidence in that not only has grown because of some of the success he's had, but also knowing he can take some chances because he's got that defense, behind him to back him up if something goes wrong. And I think it's something that has really buoyed this young quarterback and brought him along in a sense a lot faster than maybe a lot of people expected. Now, at the same time, there's been a little bit more put on his plate this year lately with the injury to J.K. Dobbins.
Yep.
They lose their number one running back. R.J. Harvey, the rookie, is the one who is now taken over at running back, and he's coming along. But there were some games that were a little bit rough for Harvey, and more fell on Bo Nix to pull out some of these close games, and the young man has done it. I mean, at some point you feel like, all right, if you're always winning these close games and putting together this long winning streak, that the luck is going to run out at some point. Like, that's one way to look at it. The other way is that when a team in the NFL gets on a roll like this, they build confidence and they believe in any given situation on any given Sunday, they can find a way to win, and that's sort of where the Broncos have evolved to now.
Yeah, he's just a winner. I mean, and I've strangely ended up watching a lot of Broncos football this year. I don't know how it's worked out that way, but just with some of these Thursday night matchups that I've actually watched quite a bit of them. The two things that really impress me about how they've built their football team, they completely renovated their offensive line a couple years ago, and I think you're starting to see the fruit of that labor here this season. They had a particularly rough outing against Las Vegas in the first matchup, but other than that have kept the pocket pretty clean for Bo Nix. Losing J.K. Dobbins is a little bit of that's a hiccup there. Now, Dobbins has dealt with injuries in the past. It shouldn't necessarily be like this huge surprise that they've had to go without him now, but the R.J. Harvey thing, he took some steps forward last week, but had been kind of rough before that, at least not having those really productive long runs, grinding it out a little bit more. But they've made adjustments. Mercedes Lewis was brought in as now a blocking tight end. They also have Adam Troutman. They have Evan Ingram. I mean, they've devoted a lot of resources to that tight end position. Oh, and then, by the way, they have one of the best possession receivers of his generation in Cortland Sutton. That's kind of helping stir the drink, too, when they need to get those first downs, when they need to move the football. So, yeah, it's a very complete football team, Mike. And while nobody seems to really be talking about Denver, everyone's just kind of like seen them sneak up to 11-2. This is a football team that is forged in the fire, and they've done it this season. And when you're talking about a team that also can clinch a playoff spot this weekend with one more victory, the Packers definitely have a lot on their hands.
Yeah, and this is a team that they actually started the season 1-2. They lost a pair of games in September, both on last-second field goals. But then suddenly those close games started to go their way, and they built up this run. You mentioned Cortland Sutton, and he's a receiver that I've always been impressed with, just in terms of an all-around weapon, but also a very reliable guy. But as dangerous as Sutton is, and as productive as he is, all you have to do is look at the box score from last week's victory over the Raiders for them, Bo Nix completed passes to 11 different guys.
Yes, he did.
You know, I believe it was 38 pass attempts. He completed 31, and those 31 completions went to 11 different people. So this is not an offense that has necessarily that go-to guy that you put the target on and go, okay, let's try to take him away. I mean, Sutton is probably the one guy that gets the most attention, with J.K. Dobbins being as the running back being injured right now. But Bo Nix has plenty of targets. He likes to spread the football around, and Sean Payton knows how to play the ball control, keep away game, right? And that's another thing that helps his defense.
Yeah, it's funny, and I wrote about this in Insider Inbox today. There is like that embryo of the New Orleans Saints offense. You can see it. They have a young quarterback. He's never really had a young quarterback. It was the Drew Brees show for so many years in New Orleans, but it is a get the ball out quick, move the ball down the field. If it's Harvey, if it is Sutton, you look at the tight ends that they have. Obviously, they made an investment there in Troy Franklin 2 years ago that is starting to work out for them. They are going to try to basically outpace you, and especially in those elements, especially at that elevation, you can be really successful with it. But when you look at the staff that Sean Payton has put together, all his top lieutenants are back.
Yeah.
I mean, he's back to having, Lombardi as his offensive coordinator. Pete Carmichael, after originally being with Dennis Allen in New Orleans, eventually joined him last year as a senior offensive assistant. There is a process that the Saints have dedicated themselves to with Sean Payton at the helm, and you can see now him starting to plant those seeds now in Denver.
Well, let's get right to it here. 11-2 versus 9-3-1. This is quite the NFC versus AFC matchup, especially for this late in the season here in mid-December. A lot of things that the Packers are going to have to do well and do right in order to win this game. So, keys to victory, what rises to the top of the list for you?
Win on third down. It's been one of the things I've been harping on all week. This is the number one ranked third down offense in the league, taking on the number one ranked third down defense in the league. And with both of those teams being at those spots, it's not a surprise. Denver wants to get you in third and long. They want to let Benito, they want to let Cooper, they want to let Allen. They want to use all those pass rushers, all the different concepts that they have available to them to pressure your quarterback, make them make mistakes, and inevitably try to get them to the turf and make them punt too. So for the Packers, why they've been successful this year on third down is they've done it on every down and distance, every situational aspect of it, whether it was a third and goal, whether it's a 3rd and 10. Green Bay has maintained its composure and has been able to win in those spots. They did last week against Chicago, and that was the difference. 8 for 12 on third downs. It didn't matter what part of the field that it was in. Green Bay was attacking, right? You go back to what happened in Detroit. The game was on the line in 4th down situations. Nobody blinked. They kept it going. The Packers need those principles in this game. And to me, not to suck all the air out of the question about keys to victory here, but also stopping the run game, or at least trying to contain it as best you can. You did a decent enough job of it last week, especially down the stretch to put the ball back in Caleb Williams' hands. They need to make Bo Nix make some throws, take some chances, and potentially keep that turnover streak going as well.
Yeah, I like what you said about third down, because obviously the rankings, Packers offense versus Broncos defense, the rankings there are undeniable. It does feel like this game will be decided on third down. What I would say as a corollary to that is the Packers offensively need to be in manageable third downs, which means you need to be able to run the ball. You need to be able to establish something with Josh Jacobs against a very stout run defense, because with this pass rush that the Broncos have, you can't live all day in 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 10. If the Packers can get themselves into the 3rd and 2s to 3rd and 4s where there's a good chunk of the playbook open, the Broncos don't necessarily know what you're going to do, or you have so many more options of how to convert 3rd and 3 versus 3rd and 9, right? I mean, those are night and day different situations. And I think being in the manageable third downs. Now, against this defense, you're certainly not going to convert them all, and it's going to be very hard for the Packers to actually maintain their 50% conversion rate on the season on third down. But they give themselves a better chance to hit that number if they're living in 3rd and 3 versus 3rd and 10.
Yeah, it's a great point because you don't want to have to count on that, right? You don't want to have to get saved in those deeper 3rd and long situations because Denver's going to make you pay, and they're only going to give you so much time in the pocket to actually operate with. I think what's great about Jordan Love, watching him evolve this year, watching him grow in his 3rd year as a starting quarterback, is he doesn't shy away from the pressure. He handles it well. It's why the Packers were able to win in Detroit a couple weeks ago, right? In the face of that blitz, in the face of that, quarterback hit, he still found Dontavian Wicks downfield. But you want to keep life easier. You want to be able to open up your whole playbook by keeping it into 3rd and short. Will be interesting to see. We're shooting this before practice on Thursday. Josh Jacobs did not practice on Wednesday. He was probably the biggest headline to come out of that practice. He's been dealing with that knee injury, basically going back to East Rutherford and against the Giants. So we'll have to see exactly where he is in this grand scheme of things. But getting him going, getting this run game going, allowing Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love to kind of cook off of that, definitely going to be paramount.
Yeah, my hope with regard to Josh Jacobs and missing practice on Wednesday, and again, I don't know anything, but my hope with that is that because the Packers ended up practicing inside on Wednesday because of the snowstorm that fell late Tuesday night in Green Bay, and the outside practice field wasn't ready. So they had to practice inside, and Jacobs just didn't want to spend 2 hours on the artificial surface inside pounding on that knee. So it was like, all right, I'm gonna give myself a rest day with the knee here. Hopefully that's what it is, and we'll see.
Probably done enough to earn a vet rest day too, right?
Yeah,
even though he's in, if you have an injury, you
that's
can't
the thing.
that.
But you know what? Josh Jacobs is going to say, don't put it as vet rest on the injury report, because that's, he's probably demanding that it not be listed, that way. Here's the other matchup that I think is really interesting. And again, it goes back to the Packers running game and potential success on 3rd down and all of that. You have Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper on the edges. The Packers have Rasheed Walker and Zach Tom. That's the kind of, the Packers have a good chance to neutralize that because they've been so solid at the tackle position all year. And if something does get away, you've got, the tight end chips and the running back chips. You can make the adjustments there. What I think is really the key matchup in this one is this sort of revamped interior of the Packers offensive line with a healthy Aaron Banks at left guard.
Yeah.
Sean Ryan taking over for Elton Jenkins, the injured Elton Jenkins at center, and then the rookie Anthony Belton stepping in now at right guard. This group they've played a few games together now, but this is the interior group that has to go up against Zach Allen and the other interior rusher who has a handful of sacks this year. His name is escaping me at the moment. Can you help me out here, Wes?
Sorry, I have the special teams up. Which one are you talking about here, Michael?
Interior defensive lineman for the Broncos.
John Franklin Myers?
Franklin Myers, yeah. That's it. So you have Allen and Franklin Myers, two interior rushers who have caused a lot of problems for opposing teams, and you have this revamped interior of the Packers offensive line. I think who wins that sort of area of the trenches is going to go a long way to determining who comes out on top in this.
Yeah, and the offensive line has been so solid too. When you look at the totality of this thing and being able to make those adjustments, right? You lose Elton Jenkins. You're dealing with this big question mark now at the center position. I think Sean Ryan has done an exemplary job stepping in there, a position that was not natural for him. He's owned it. He's gone into some difficult environments and still played really well. You're seeing that momentum build with him. And then honestly, Mike, look at Anthony Belton. This is another guy that was a college tackle that has now taken over that right guard position. And there's going to be some learning that has to be done. It hasn't all been perfect, but he is a monstrous offensive lineman.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
Particularly last week against Chicago, seeing the way he is moving people backwards off the offensive line, that's the hallmark. You want to pass protect, you got to do all the various things, pick up the stunts. There's so much that goes into offensive line play. But can you beat the man that's in front of you? And I feel like in this very small sample size, Anthony Belton is proving up to that task.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, before we start talking about the other games around the league in Week 15, anything else that sort of rises up high on the list of the keys to victory here?
I want to just really mention that elevation question. And I know this always comes up. The Packers have only played Denver a handful of times in the last 18 years. But this is going to be a switch up. Now, I think one thing we've seen with technology and advancement of all this stuff is there really isn't a benefit to going out there a day early. I think Mike McCarthy maybe did once, if I remember right.
It was in 2015. I actually mentioned this in Insider Inbox. The team did not go out a day early, but the team traveled early Saturday morning before a Sunday game and practiced at a Denver area high school on Saturday afternoon. Prior to, it was actually a Sunday night football game. So then after that Saturday afternoon practice, there was a bit of a layoff before the game. And then the Packers just got annihilated by Peyton Manning and the Broncos. Now, that was the Peyton Manning Broncos team that won the Super Bowl that year.
That defense was good.
Yeah, and won it pretty convincingly. But yeah, I looked it up this week. The total yards in that game in 2015, it was 500 to 140.
Yeah.
I mean, it was...
Aaron Rodgers threw for 77 yards, I think.
I mean, that was the Packers, who were 6-0 at that time, got absolutely dominated by the Broncos, and that Broncos team ended up going on to win the Super Bowl. But yeah, to your point about the elevation, I don't think there's been anything proven by teams as far as visiting Denver, trying to go a day early and acclimate to
you got to do it like a week.
And all that. Yeah, it's it needs to be more than that. I will say this: the Packers were just in Denver 2 years ago with that young 2023 team that at that time was struggling quite a bit and was trying to figure a lot of things out. But the Packers actually were kind of the better team in the fourth quarter of that game, and had it not been for a very highly questionable holding call on Elton Jenkins when the Packers were driving to try to get in position for a game-winning or at least game-leading field goal. If it hadn't been for that holding call, the Packers might have pulled that game out with a fourth quarter field goal at the end and beaten the Broncos. I thought as that game went on anyway, now this is 2 years later and both teams are very different, but as that game went on, I thought the Packers were the better team later in the game than the Broncos were, for whatever that's worth going into this one.
It's a good point. And we were talking with Isaiah McDuffie about this in the locker room on Wednesday, and he mentioned, I mean, like a lot of guys, not necessarily just that game, but they've had that experience now of playing there. They understand what's going to be required of taking care of their bodies, the hydration that's going to be involved with that. And Matt LaFleur mentioned on Wednesday that they've actually sat down, their performance and coaches and trainers and all that had, a little bit of a 4-1-1 that they provided to the team in terms of what to expect with this thing for the guys that haven't played at altitude. So, yeah, it comes with the league. It's a natural storyline every time a road team, especially an uncommon opponent, goes to Denver. But at the end of the day, the Packers, we are in Week 15. When you talk about football shape, when you talk about the amount that the Green Bay has put into this, we're almost 5 months in when you go back to the start of training camp. I mean, it's go time. This is what you play for, and we'll talk about this in a second with the rest of the breakdown, the NFC and the AFC, but this is an opportunity for Green Bay to make a statement. And, yeah, there's implications with this. You get a win. It puts you in the conversation for that first-round bye. But realistically, the Packers have been to the playoffs the last 2 years. The goal is to go farther, right, to try to make a championship run here, especially as this team gets healthier down the stretch. I can think of no better way to kind of propel yourself into this final quarter of the season than taking out a very talented Broncos team that hasn't lost since September.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, with that, let's pay a few bills and hear a quick word from our sponsor. Sirius XM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. At Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, 50-plus years of better. Pit Boss Grills, the official grill of Packers tailgating at Lambeau or at your house. Take your game day to the next level with a Pit Boss wood pellet grill. Pit Boss Grills available at Menards. Hey Packers fans, we always knew Lambeau Field was a wonder, but now it's official. Learn more about all the wonders of Wisconsin at travelwisconsin.com/wonders. Welcome back to Packers Unscripted. Wes, when you look at the rest of the Week 15 schedule, a lot of eyeballs will be on Denver. This Packers-Broncos game is a big one and a very intriguing one. But the other game that jumps off the schedule, Detroit is at the Los Angeles Rams. That's 8-5 versus 10-3. The Lions They don't have a whole lot of margin for error left in this very tight and competitive NFC race. And by the same token, the Rams, who technically hold the number one spot in the NFC right now, but they're actually tied for their division lead with the Seattle Seahawks. And the Rams and the Seahawks are playing one another next week, I believe.
Yep.
So this is a really interesting one. The Lions taking what really has been a very dangerous and productive and high-flying offense, but a struggling, banged-up, injured defense out to Los Angeles to take on a Rams team that has really, other than that hiccup against the Carolina Panthers when Stafford threw a few interceptions, which was out of character for him this year, a Rams team that both offensively and defensively has been pretty darn consistent.
I think pound for pound, you have to make the case that the Rams are currently the best team in the NFL. I know the Seattle Seahawks have an issue with that, but the fact is the Seahawks haven't beaten anybody in the second half of the season, and the one loss was to the Rams.
Yeah.
Seattle has taken care of business. You give them credit for that, but when you're looking at strength of victory right now, I mean, they're a big dog running through the rest of the pond at this point. So, from the Rams' perspective, this is a tall order for them. And when you look at these stretches of the games coming up too, Mike, okay, so Seattle, from their perspective, they got the Colts and maybe Phillip Rivers this weekend. We'll see.
I was going to ask you about that.
We'll get to that in a second.
Phillip Rivers storyline there in Indianapolis.
But they got the Colts this weekend. Then they go Rams, Panthers, and 49ers. And the Panthers very well could be playing for the division. For the Rams, it's Detroit, it's Seattle, then it's Atlanta and Arizona.
Yeah.
So they got two big ones here.
Yeah.
So if they can take care of business against the Lions, they kind of have this thing laid out for them a little bit. Now, That being said, every time someone counts Detroit out, they smack them in the mouth.
Yep.
They did it last week against Dallas. They manhandled the Cowboys, coming off a very difficult loss to Green Bay. So I loved how you painted this in Path to the Playoffs. I think you have to have the glass half full mindset, which is the Packers want to win all these games down the stretch. You want the number one seed. With that in mind, you got to root for the Lions. But it's crazy to me that the Lions could win this game against the Rams and are still trying to claw themselves into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like that's how tight that top 7-8, if you take out the NFC South, the top 6-7, no pun intended, is trying to claim that number 7 seed.
Yeah.
And it's funny, a couple years ago, I was the biggest proponent saying number 7 seed, I hate it. And I give the NFL credit. They sold it better than I did. There has not been a question if a 9-8-9 or 9-8 team is going to make the playoffs. It's kind of come down to if you have 10 or 11 wins trying to grab that last spot.
Yeah, that's certainly the way it's shaping up this year. And it's interesting what you said about Seattle in terms of like their strength of victory and whatnot. And here the Indianapolis Colts have been sort of waiting on Seattle's schedule, but oh wait, Daniel Jones just was lost for the season to an Achilles injury. So now Seattle is going to play a Colts team that doesn't have its quarterback and may have a 44-year-old quarterback retired for 5 years. Semifinalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2026, but the clock is going to restart now because he signed a contract to join Indianapolis's practice squad, and it sure sounds like he very well could be playing on Sunday.
Yeah.
I give Phillip Rivers credit. I'll just say this though. I mean, Seattle's defense is pretty darn good, and I'm a little afraid, without having been playing and training and everything else, the dangerous position Phillip Rivers might be putting himself in as a 44-year-old taking the field against that Seahawks defense. I'll just say it now. I hope that we're not talking about this come Monday, but I do have my concerns.
I love the aggressiveness, though. And it's funny, too. Talk about putting your money where your mouth is. There's been kind of like rumblings the last few years that Phillip Rivers maybe was getting that itch again. The door opened, and
it sure did.
He plowed right through it, right? So, and then kudos to Daniel Jones, actually very gracious, offering him his number 17. So Phillip Rivers, there still will be a number 17 on the field for the Colts, but a remarkable turnaround. I'll tell you what. Just give credit to Seattle. I kind of dogged on them a little bit, and there really is some big questions about the teams they've beaten this year. But they kind of, in a way, are kind of like Green Bay last year. They've run through that division, the AFC South this year.
Yeah.
They sweep it if they can beat the Colts. You got to win those games to put yourself in contention.
Last one to get your quick thoughts on. Minnesota is at Dallas. One of these teams is in some ways going to be just about eliminated. The Vikings almost certainly will be eliminated with a loss. The Dallas Cowboys, not mathematically eliminated, but they really can't afford to lose any more games either. Which team stays alive, do you think?
I think Dallas does.
Yeah, I think so too.
Now, if 9 can
be 9
against that Dallas defense, it's going to be there. But I think Dak Prescott's playing really well. He kind of reminds me a little bit of what Joe Burrow was doing during the final stretch last year, where he doesn't really have a defense to work off. It's not an overly talented team, but he's using what he has. If they can keep George Pickens' head in it, I think.
When you're the Cowboys, all you have to do is basically cross the 50, get to about the 45-yard line, and Brandon Aubrey can put 3 points on the board for you from just about anywhere. So
make or break for the Vikings, though, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. They're up against it, and if they want to have anything to play for other than pride and spoiler and whatnot, the last few weeks of the season, the Vikings have to win this one to keep themselves mathematically alive.
And this is it's big. They need to see if that kid can play.
Yeah.
And these last 4 games, even that finale against Green Bay, even if the Vikings are out of it, they're going to be playing hard.
Oh yeah.
I think I saw statistically the Vikings is at 1% chance of the playoffs. I think Dallas is 10% right now. So yeah, it's last call.
All right. With that, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of Packers Unscripted. Be sure to follow all of our coverage of the team and all of our coverage of Sunday's big game from Denver. We'll have it all for you on Packers.com. For Wes, I'm Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next time.